Have you ever wondered which nostalgic games are still worth playing today? In this video, I'm revealing 13 single-player classics that stand the test of time. If you're craving a trip down memory lane with games that remain engaging and fun, you need to see this list. You might miss out on reliving some of the best gaming moments ever if you don't watch until the end. By the way, I'm only featuring games that range between 5 to maybe 15 years old. And this list is also not sorted in any particular order, because all of these games deserve to be played once again. Let's kick off this list with The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Can you believe this game is already 7 years old? Some people say it was overrated at its peak, but let's be honest, overrated often just means that someone didn't vibe with a game that others loved. Breath of the Wild isn't flawless, but it's undeniably fantastic and has achieved so much. Personally, I'm not the biggest Zelda fan, and I've only played 3 games in the series, with Breath of the Wild being one of them, and yet I found it to be a truly remarkable experience. The graphics are stunning with a unique art style, and the soundtrack breathes life into its vast world. Solving puzzles, while a bit on the easier side for me, really helped me appreciate the expansive environment. The game offers a variety of enemies, some quite challenging, which keeps the combat interesting. Speaking of combat, it may not be as intricate as Dark Souls or Devil May Cry, but it emphasizes planning and resourcefulness. The weather and temperature system initially felt strange, but as I continued playing, I grew to love it as it added a dynamic layer to the world to make it feel more alive. Constantly adapting to different conditions kept the gameplay fresh. And the story? I also found it compelling, and I think it's arguably one of the best in the series. If you haven't played it yet, Breath of the Wild is definitely worth your time. Next up is Inside. While it's not a sequel to Playdead's 2010 Limbo, it shares a similar 2.5D concept and eerie atmosphere. In this game, you control a boy navigating a dystopian world, solving environmental puzzles and dodging death at every turn. Personally, dark environments in games aren't my favorite, but Inside, much like Limbo, is a notable exception. Despite its foreboding ambiance, the world feels strangely alive. The narrative is deliberately vague yet intriguing, making you ponder what's really going on. As you play, you realize the red-shirted boy you're guiding is unique, which adds depth to the story. The side-scrolling aspect intensifies the feeling of constant escape and urgency. Gameplay-wise, Inside is both fun and inventive. If you've played Limbo, many puzzles such as moving boxes, pulling levers, and rooftop traversals will seem familiar. Still, the mechanics feel fresh and engaging. Depending on your puzzle-solving skills, completing the game can take anywhere from 3 to 7 hours. The puzzles vary in difficulty, but they are always fair, providing a satisfying challenge. The game runs smoothly across all platforms, and if you're on PC, you can try a demo before committing to the full version, priced around $20 on Steam at the time of this video. Give it a go if you're up for an atmospheric, thought-provoking adventure. Next on the list, we have Celeste. This game is a tough but fair platformer that ramps up in difficulty as you progress. Unlike many hardcore platformers, Celeste is pretty forgiving with its frequent checkpoints and minimal punishment for deaths, so you won't lose much time when you fail. The game genuinely wants you to succeed, offering helpful guidance for mastering its hardest tricks right when you need it. Overcoming challenging obstacles delivers an unmatched sense of accomplishment. You can stick to the main story, which spans 7 chapters, or dive into collecting loads of collectibles and taking on additional challenges. Celeste also boasts a rich storyline that many people can relate to. While the cast isn't large, each character brings something unique to the game. Again, it's important to note that Celeste is a precision platformer. If you're new to this genre, it's a great starting point. However, if you know you're not into precision platformers, this might not be your cup of tea. While I can talk more about the story, art, and music in detail, the gameplay really stands out and is crucial to understand before jumping in. If you're up for a challenge with rewarding gameplay and an engaging story, Celeste is a must-try. Next up, we have Shadow of the Colossus Remake. This game is truly one of a kind and firmly belongs on any must-experience list. The PS4 remake is exceptionally well done and feels like the way the game was originally meant to be played. The story of Shadow of the Colossus is told in a wonderfully minimalistic way. Without spoiling anything, it reveals itself through sparse dialogue and cutscenes, leaving much for the player to piece together from environmental clues. It's a narrative that's both deeply emotional and profoundly sad, yet incredibly beautiful in its execution. The core of the game revolves around hunting down 16 colossi scattered throughout a stunning and diverse world. Each Colossus battle is an epic encounter with these gigantic creatures, requiring you to find and exploit their weak points. To take down these colossi, you must explore the beautiful world, discover their locations, and use the environment to climb onto them. The battles are incredibly diverse, with each Colossus presenting a unique challenge. The gameplay is slower and more methodical compared to many action games, but it remains challenging and deeply satisfying. The remake enhances the original's visual splendor, offering a world filled with varied and breathtaking landscapes. The game's indirect storytelling and slower pace might not appeal to everyone, but for those who appreciate a more contemplative and visually stunning adventure, it's a phenomenal experience. Personally, I loved every second of it. The blend of exploration, puzzle solving, and epic battles left me with an unforgettable experience. Up next, we have Into the Breach. This indie gem, launched in 2018, is a tactical masterpiece that you definitely need to check out. Although its player base has declined and it's not as frequently discussed nowadays, it still remains one of the finest tactical games out there. In the game, you command powerful mechs from the future to fend off an alien threat. Each level is randomly generated, ensuring no two encounters are the same, which keeps the gameplay fresh and exciting. The game has a strategic depth, similar to chess, focusing on momentum, positioning, and clever combinations to secure victory. Into the Breach is quite unique with its impeccable game design, where every element perfectly complements the core gameplay. The fast-paced battles with optional objectives are thrilling, and the primary goal of delaying enemies and protecting civilian buildings offers a refreshing twist. While the game can be brutally difficult at first, once you get the hang of it, the victories are incredibly satisfying. There are plenty of unlockables, including new squads and achievements, which encourage you to experiment with different strategies. The achievements are designed around specific squads, incentivizing you to try new things and earn coins. The varied difficulty options add substantial depth to the gameplay, making it even more challenging and rewarding. Overall, Into the Breach is a stellar follow-up to FTL, surpassing it in many ways with its tight design and intense decision-making. If you love tactical games, this is a must-play. Next up, we have Dead Cells. This roguelite action RPG, which released in 2018, offers a thrilling experience where you progress through procedurally generated levels, while finding new items and power scrolls to buff your character and beat the boss at the end. What sets Dead Cells apart is its self-proclaimed Metroidvania style. After a few runs, you'll discover items called runes that change how your character interacts with each level. While the Metroidvania tag might be debatable, the game's charm is undeniable. One of the most fascinating aspects of Dead Cells is the boss stem cells. After clearing your first run, you're given a boss stem cell, which can be adjusted at the start of the game to increase the difficulty with new rules. This adds a compelling layer of challenge and replayability. The combat in Dead Cells is excellent, accompanied by background music that enhances the atmosphere, especially during intense boss fights. There's also a unique color system that follows the weapon and mutation blueprints, adding an interesting twist to the gameplay. Although Dead Cells was a big hit, games like Hades have since drawn some of its fan base. Despite this, the developers continue to release updates and DLCs, keeping the game fresh and engaging. These updates bring new life to Dead Cells, ensuring it remains a standout title in the roguelite genre. If you haven't played it yet, it's definitely worth diving into this challenging and rewarding experience. Up next, we have XCOM 2. This 2016 sequel to the award-winning XCOM Enemy Unknown builds on its predecessor with more robust features and a thrilling turn-based strategy experience. XCOM 2 introduces a lot of new elements not found in the original, making it a standout game in the series. The default difficulty setting, called Veteran, is designed for players familiar with XCOM, which provides a balanced challenge. But it can be adjusted, depending on your skills. Soldiers' customization, developing new projects, landing critical blows on enemies, executing flawless missions, and unlocking advanced weapons and armor are all exhilarating aspects that will surely drive you to take on new challenges. The game also strikes a delicate balance between being approachable and offering intense, stressful moments that demand strategic thinking and careful planning. Visually, XCOM 2 impresses with its Unreal Engine graphics, rendering enemies and troops with a level of detail that rivals first-person shooters instead of an RTS game. This visual fidelity enhances the immersion and makes each mission feel dynamic and alive. But where XCOM 2 really stands out was its overall gameplay. In my opinion, it's an excellent entry point for anyone new to turn-based strategy games, with its intuitive mechanics and deep strategic layers. Additionally, the game features base-building elements that allow you to unlock new weapons and upgrades to add another layer of depth to the overall experience. XCOM 2 is a must-play for strategy enthusiasts and newcomers alike, offering a rich, rewarding experience that holds up remarkably well against today's games. Next on the list, we have Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. This third-person open-world action-adventure game puts you in the shoes of Talion, a ranger on a quest for revenge against Sauron's forces after his family is brutally killed. The story, while rooted in typical revenge themes, offers some intriguing twists as it unfolds. The combat in Shadow of Mordor is outstanding, surpassing even the Arkham series in its fluidity and variety. Every hit feels smooth, and you gain numerous abilities early on that integrate seamlessly into the combat. Most upgrades are engaging, with only a few feeling less impactful. Graphically, the game holds up well, with realistic orcs that avoid a cartoonish look. While some challenges might feel repetitive, that's a common trait in hack-and-slash games. However, the unique army system featuring different high-ranking orcs as bosses adds a refreshing layer of strategy and balance to the experience. Overall, Shadow of Mordor is a must-play for action-adventure fans, offering compelling combat, a rich narrative, and a visually immersive world that stands the test of time. Next up, we have Mafia 3. Among all the Mafia games, Mafia 3 is undeniably the most criticized, which I personally don't understand. Sure, it has some repetitive aspects, but the story is captivating. I may get some negative feedback for this, but I believe you shouldn't rely solely on the negative reviews you see online. To get a fair assessment, look at the positive reviews and see if they align with your expectations. If you're considering picking up Mafia 3 today and wondering if you need to play the previous installments, the answer is no. Like the Grand Theft Auto series, you don't need to play Mafia 1 and 2 to enjoy Mafia 3. Although it stands alone, there are connections to Mafia 2, particularly through Vito, the protagonist of Mafia 2, who appears as one of Lincoln's underbosses in Mafia 3. While playing Mafia 2 isn't essential, it will help you appreciate some references and enrich your experience. In my opinion, Mafia 3 excels in several areas. The cinematics and the use of music in cutscenes are phenomenal, making the story so engaging that you won't want to skip any scenes. The combat system is also a significant improvement over the previous titles. The game's world may not give you a total immersion, but there are some little details that make it engaging. For example, various NPCs in Del Rey Hollow greet Lincoln, and he responds. Another is how cops tail you when they see you driving in Frisco Fields. These little details are what makes the world of Mafia 3 alive and interactive. Though I gotta admit that Mafia 3 is not perfect, but it's definitely worth playing. The game also offers a free demo, and your progress on the demo will be transferred to the full game if you decide to get the full version. Next is Far Cry 4. I think this fourth installment is one of the best games in the entire Far Cry series. Visually, the game was fantastic for 2014, and I often found myself getting lost, mesmerized by the beautiful Himalayan mountains. Kyrat, the game setting, felt unique compared to the tropical islands of previous games, and it quickly became my favorite. The story kept me hooked, with AJ Gale's journey and his complex connection to the antagonist, Pagan Min. Speaking of Pagan Min, in my opinion, he's by far the best villain in any Far Cry game. It's hard to hate Pagan despite his many atrocities, like the horrible things he did to Noor. Every time he appeared on screen, I couldn't help but smile. His charm comes from his pink paisley suit, Troy Baker's exceptional voice acting, and the franchise's knack for creating likable villains. The game's endings, which reveal what Sabal and Amita do after Pagan's fall, left me wishing I could have joined forces with Pagan instead. The moral ambiguity and the dark turns in the story make the narrative compelling and thought-provoking. The gameplay itself is solid, with plenty of activities, missions, and side quests to keep you engaged. The open world design, filled with hidden secrets and breathtaking landscapes that invites endless exploration. Far Cry 4 excels in combining a captivating storyline with an immersive world, making it a must-play for fans of the series and newcomers alike. Up next, we have Little Nightmares. This game became well known upon its release in 2017, bringing a vibe reminiscent of Limbo and Inside. You control Six, guiding her as she tries to escape the nightmare of the Maw. The main gameplay involves traversing through horrific environments and avoiding the hostile denizens, trying to stay alive in this brutal dark world. The game is mostly in a faux 2D style, with a fixed side perspective, but the world itself is three-dimensional. You'll encounter a mix of exploration, puzzling, platforming, and a bit of stealth gameplay. There's no combat in Little Nightmares, but that doesn't mean it's an easy game. You have to be careful with all your actions to avoid the many dangers lurking around. The graphics are impressive, showcasing what the Unreal Engine can achieve. The environmental design is top-notch, with each area flowing into the next almost seamlessly and logically. Some players might find the story short, but there are hidden collectibles and side objectives that add to the game's depth. It features truly disturbing imagery and implications, so it's a game I'd recommend adults play first and use their judgment on how a child would handle it. The game can be violent, but isn't gory, just unsettling at times. If scary games aren't your thing, or you don't like vague stories, or if visuals like children being eaten alive bother you, you might want to pass on this one. Next, we have Unravel. This 2.5D physics-based puzzle platformer, much like the previous game mentioned, is a short yet captivating adventure you can complete in a day. You control Yarny, a character with one of the simplest yet most effective designs I've seen. His cutesy yarn exterior makes him instantly relatable, and it's hard not to care for him right away. The game beautifully contrasts themes of hope and despair, reflected in Yarny's warm red yarn exterior, which unravels to reveal a skeletal wireframe as he progresses through the levels. Despite Yarny's simple face, composed of two black buttons, his shifting emotions are conveyed effectively. Watching him transition from hope to despair as he loses more yarn is surprisingly humanizing. The art direction and environment design are outstanding. Since the game involves reliving memories, the settings are filled with a strong sense of nostalgia. Seeing everything from the perspective of a 3-inch tall doll makes the world feel fantastical, with vivid colors and lighting adding to the magic. While the game has some minor flaws, they are easily overlooked thanks to Yarny's warm cuteness and the emotional depth of the story, and the beautiful art and engaging puzzles create a memorable experience. Not everyone may love Unravel as much as I do, but I sincerely hope you give it a shot. And finally, to conclude our list, we have Yakuza 0. If you haven't played any Yakuza game yet, Yakuza 0 is the perfect entry point. Not only is it the first in chronological order, but it's also one of the best in the entire Yakuza franchise. The first few chapters might feel a bit slow, but trust me, if you give it a chance, you'll be thrilled by how good it gets. The story is truly amazing because every single character is written so well. Even the sub-story characters have unique personalities, that some minor characters are better written than main characters in other games. The gameplay is solid, though some fighting styles do overshadow others. For example, Majima's breaker style can feel overpowered, and if there are any bikes around when you're in beast mode with Kiryu, it's pretty much game over for your enemies. I love how all the billions of yen you gather are mostly spent on upgrading your abilities, with health items and other necessities being relatively cheap. The sub-stories are crafted with such care, but if you're not into reading, that might be a drawback. The minigames are this series' bread and butter, and they're all really well made, even if some like the catfighting minigame can be a bit annoying. And once you're done with Yakuza 0, the sequel, Yakuza Kiwami, is ready and waiting for you to dive into. This game is a blend of intense drama, quirky humor, and addictive gameplay. Yakuza 0 is not just a game. It's an experience that will stick with you long after you've finished playing. So, there you have it. I know some of you may wonder why I didn't include some popular games like Red Dead Redemption 2. Well, that's simply because they still have thousands of active players even up to this day. They are just timeless games that can stand out even now. There are still lots of old games out there that are worth mentioning, but of course, I can't cover all of them in a single video. Also, I know there are still lots of nostalgic games out there that are worth mentioning, but of course, I can't cover all of them in a single video. So, if you have any suggestions, please let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed watching this video, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.